Yo, what's up, Bob here?
Jeffrey Lee here with Bob.
Recently, Jeffrey Lee called me, said that he had pulled out a preamp with a sterling reputation.
Yeah, a history.
And I needed to come over and hear it. So, of course, I jumped in the Jupiter 2 and zipped on over here. We spun some records. I brought some reference records with me. Jeffrey Lee's got his records that he's been listening to a lot. And I thought we would get JLP to tell us about the preamp, and then we might talk about these records. So I guess we're going to go ahead and do that now.
This is a not super well-known company. MFA was the company name. It's Bruce Moore, Scott Franklin. They are designers. They had designed for other manufacturers, and then they came together to make MFA. And their entire goal was to make all-tube preamps, and they also did some amps. And they wanted to make high-gain preamps, so very lively, but also with a lot of natural warmth and bloom. So there's 4 tubes in my preamp. It's the Magus, M-A-G-U-S is the model name. Came out in '84. Mine is the very first version. They did revisions later on. They added different inputs and tweaked a couple of things. At the time I bought mine, I really wanted to get a tube phono preamplifier. And I could not find a standalone one that I could afford that had a, all the ones with the great reputations, I just couldn't afford them.
Right.
So I thought, well, maybe I'll find an old preamp that has a really good phono stage, and I'll just use it. And I found this one for, I believe it was $600, because its phono stage was pretty close to uniformly beloved.
So not cheap, though.
So it wasn't cheap.
No.
I mean, it was, it was about 3/4 of the retail price when I bought it for $600. And I used it without really knowing what I had exactly. I don't think at that time I was really well versed in gain, in phono gain.
Right.
And because I really had always been moving magnet. I never had any moving coils. And the thing is just a beast. So I was feeding it way too much voltage. So I used it in my system for a while. And it sounded really good, lots of bass, but it just always seemed like it was aggressive. And I thought, well, maybe this one's not for me. And I wound up getting the Dynaco, which I later sold to Bob. And
still got it.
So, and eventually I settled on my main phono preamplifier, Eastern Electric, and have used it forever. But I stumbled across this MFA sitting in my upstairs bedroom, and I thought, this is just stupid.
Wow.
This is sitting here.
So how long was it up there?
It was up there for 12 years. So I got in touch with Scott. Scott Franklin is still in the business. He's still designing circuits for people. He has a whole thing, Scott Franklin Associates. Does a lot of work. I emailed him. He got right back to me. Said, send it in. I'll go over it. I'll make sure everything's fine. I asked him to tweak the RIAA circuit, because he had discovered that he had maybe made one mistake in the original design, and it was a little hot in a lot of people's systems. So he took that little, lowered that little frequency a little bit, and I hooked it up, and my jaw was, it took a couple of friends to get my jaw back up off the floor. And ever since then, it's like every record is an adventure.
Sounds fantastic.
It does.
I was completely blown away. Hairs standing up on my arms. I mean, it was beautiful sounding.
And it's not even the best preamp they made. They had another model called the Luminescence, which apparently is unobtainium.
Really?
And it's supposed to be spectacular. And I've never seen one for sale.
Wow.
And I'm sure I couldn't afford it if I found one, but I don't really think I need it.
Well,
I'm real happy.
If you see that sitting around in a old hi-fi store.
If you
or something.
see anything that has MFA as the brand name, you must grab it.
Grab it. All right. Puckett, you want to kick it off here?
One of the first things I played on my new preamp was finally someone put out one of probably my favorite Tom Verlaine album. It was only released in the U.S. on CD. There was one European vinyl pressing that quickly went out of print. And Real Gone Music, a reissue label that I really, really love and have a lot of good luck with.
Jeffrey Lee put it on, and I immediately was thinking, wow, that's a really fantastic sounding guitar record.
It's very moody, very atmospheric, very ambient. It's not a shredder record. It's more of a really more composed. It's a composition.
It's definitely well recorded, though.
Super well recorded.
Yeah.
It was always one of my 2 or 3 best sounding CDs. So I just always dreamed about what would this sound like on vinyl, and they did a beautiful job.
It is somewhat limited, so if you want a copy, you should get it right away.
Yeah, Real Gone uses Got a Groove pressing plant in Cleveland, which is always small runs.
If you've been keeping track of Sturgill Simpson, you will know that he has a new record coming out very soon. I believe the 12th of July. And that got me in the mood to go back and listen to some of the other Sturgill records. And as I was doing that, I realized that A Sailor's Guide to Earth is a rather audiophile sounding record. I was so wrapped up in the moment that this came out that element of this record just kind of went right over my head. I was so busy internalizing the fact that he did a total sea change on his sound, and there's a Nirvana cover and all that I didn't even realize how fantastic this record sounds. If you haven't, pull it out and listen to The Breakers Roar, or even In Bloom. This thing sounds pretty great. We all have seen this. It's been shown many times. What'd you think of it, Puckett?
Yeah, I'm sort of famously anti-Sturgill for reasons I don't even understand or can't explain. And I'm coming around.
Yeah.
And I thought that every song we listened to off that record sounded amazing. Amazing art, not recording. It seems like a good album.
Yeah, it's a good record, yeah.
I've been really into John Fahey lately. I love instrumental music. I like to stop thinking about words, whenever I get a chance. And this is one of his records that Michael Fremer turned me on to, but he mentioned it as a sneaky, super well recorded, really interesting album. And once again, Mikey was correct. It's a really cool record. It has what sounds like an 11-foot wide guitar.
It's fantastic sounding.
It's crazy, and it's all over the place. It goes into Dixieland, it goes into ragtime, it has acoustic guitar tracks. It's nuts. And,
white label promo?
That's a white label promo.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Very
there
cool.
it is.
Yeah.
I love those WLPs.
I just think this is a pretty insane record, and I like to use it when I'm auditioning gear sometimes, because there's a lot of elements and layers to this recording. Beck Oday. This is the 2016 Bernie Grundman in the Dead Wax. There's some infighting on Discogs about whether the bong load version or this one is the better one. This one sounds great. In particular, we were checking out the Rhodes sound on Where It's At, when it, that little Rhodes piece that comes in the beginning. And then all that lo-fi and hi-fi stuff kind of mixed together. This is a fantastic record. This sounds pretty badass, really, right? I mean, I think it's kind of an underrated Beck record. Beck's Oday, yeah.
And this is not an audiophile record by any stretch of imagination. But I love the Plimsolls. They were a Los Angeles band, power pop. This came out in '83. I saw them. I was introduced to them because I used to Well, I still do love Nicolas Cage, but one of my first Nicolas Cage movies was Valley Girl. Just a terrific movie, and there's a nightclub scene where the Plimsolls are playing.
Yeah.
Million Miles Away is probably their most famous song. If that doesn't ring a bell, as soon as it starts playing, you're going to go, oh yeah, that jam. This entire record is really, really good. Like most old vinyl, it has recently gone into the $30 range. I used to find these for $1 everywhere. I've given away probably 6 or 8 copies of this album because I would just find them for $1. So that's how little foresight I have when it comes to record collecting. I could have held on to a few of those, but nope. I've got my OG copy, and it is one brilliant tune after another.
Yeah, we were rocking out on that. For my final selection, I bought a brand new record, the Hermanos Gutierrez. That's the Gutierrez brothers. The record is entitled Sonido Cosmico. You're going to hear lots of clean tones that are associated with, say, Fender amps, Gretsch guitars. It's kind of atmospheric instrumental music.
Yeah, it's very much a cousin to that Tom Verlaine record.
Yeah.
Which I just now dawned on me. They're very similar in a lot of ways.
Right. You can see these guys, they're all decked out in their kind of Southwestern jewelry and stuff. Great sounding music. Uncle Larry's on almost every track. If you don't know, that's Tom Bukovac, very famous guitar player. Kind of put some mojo on some of these tunes. Tom's not up front, obviously. These two fellas are. But significant contribution to the record. It is on very cool looking kind of splatter. It's almost clear. I'll pop it out. Kind of noisy. Not sure where this was pressed, but
we have 2 guesses.
Yeah, somewhere in Tennessee. We'll just put it that way. That said, if you can get the black one, you probably ought to do that, I would say. Or if you just want the really cool looking splatter, get this one. Great music. Decent sounding record. Was recorded at Dan from the Black Keys studio. He was also producing, so kind of has some of those flavors going on. Plus, look at this artwork. Absolutely outstanding. Yes. Easy Eye Sound is the label. What I will say is, new preamp sounds incredible. Very, very holographic, 3D sounding, lots of layers, it seems, in Jeffrey Lee's space. I always say that about his listening room. It's a bigger space. It's not super live, but it's just enough to where everything sounds great. And
I got lucky.
Yeah, pretty much every
did.
rig he puts together sounds amazing in there, but he's really crossed the threshold, I think, now. I don't know if there's any going. He's notorious for changing things around.
Yeah.
I don't know how much he'll change.
I can't bring myself to change anything.
I don't think he will.
I'm sure I'll roll 2.
What's the cartridge that you're
using? Well, that's the thing we didn't mention. We mentioned all the gain, but this is just a regular preamp that you can plug a low output moving coil cartridge just straight into it.
You don't need any step-up transformers or anything.
Yeah. So I have a Shelter 501 Type 3 or version 3. It's a 0.5 millivolt output, so really low, perfect with the MFA. When I first plugged it in, it was wild because I was trying to put 5.
Right. It was hot.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
But this Shelter and most moving coils are fine into standard phono stage as long as there's enough gain.
So essentially, it's just the preamp into the Vincent, right?
This is basically the most classic setup. It's turntable, preamp, amp, speakers.
That's it. Done. So sounds amazing. So anyway, well, yeah. Leave some comments down below.
Yeah, let me know if you've heard an MFA. They're just so rare, and I've never known anyone who's had one. I just don't think they made a whole lot of them, and it's been 45 years. So yeah, if you have one, I especially want to know what your experience has been like.
If you've had one upstairs in your house for the last 12 years,
yeah, go get it.
Get it out and plug it in.
This is Hamburg.
Okay.
This is where the Star Club is in St. Pauli neighborhood.
Very cool.
Jerry Lee Lewis played a killer, no pun intended, set at the Star Club. This thing is liquid fire. Liquid fire.